Welcome into Pac-12 Preview. Yes, I am Michael Carritenuto at Diablo00 is where you can find me on Twitter. And it is Friday, April 14th. And yes, taxes are due. Well, Monday, because the 15th falls on a Saturday. So, all that good stuff. Yes, the fun stuff. But yeah, welcome in. Glad you could be here. And I know on Monday, obviously talked a little spring ball. Obviously, a lot of spring ball going on. Tempe, we're wrapping up here in Tempe tomorrow as ASU has their spring game. Obviously, Coach Dillingham, his first year as head coach, wrapping up his first spring and wrapping up his first spring. Practices are all done, and now the spring game tomorrow at noon here locally, which would be 3 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Central, and noon Pacific. So, yeah, all works out well. But, yeah, that is going down. Obviously, looking at spring ball, I know Oregon State wrapping up, Washington wrapping up, Colorado in the midst of theirs as well. So, yeah, and then baseball and softball season going beach volleyball for schools that have it. We also, what else? At ASU, I know, women's lacrosse as well. Water polo. Tennis getting ready to wrap up and head into their postseason as well. So, yeah, just a lot going on in the thick of, like I said, the baseball and softball season. So, yes, do follow me on Twitter at Diablo00. You have any questions? Again, hit me up there on Twitter. If you have been seeing, I've been out at ASU spring practices. Yes. So it's, again, fun time of year, exciting time of year. And I got to say, in spring practice culminating tomorrow with the spring game, like I said, but to kick it off, we do have Pat's Run, which again is Pat Tillman. He was an Arizona State Sun Devil, played for Bruce Snyder, was on the Rose Bowl teams, and just an overall great guy. And I just happened to be lucky enough to be at ASU at the same time when Pat Tillman was there. So it's one of those things where and the first one was back in 2005, and for Pat Tillman's story, and we'll get to that. And I mean, ASU again has done such a phenomenal job. It's a 4.2-mile race that ends on the 42-yard line inside Sun Devil Stadium, and Pat Tillman. And I said I'd share it, so we're gonna get right into it. Pat Tillman, like I said, played football at ASU, was drafted by the Arizona Cardinals, but in his time at ASU, I want to start with that because you go to football games and you're walking around campus and you see athletes, players, different sports all the time, and the dorm I lived in, shout out to PV East in Tempe. But the dorm me and quite a few of my good friends lived in, PV East. a girl that went to the same high school that Pat did in California. Yes, he's originally from California. A friend of mine, Mandy, actually, and I obviously seen him play quite a bit, and was like, man, that guy is just all over the field. And you look at him, you're like, all right, might not be the biggest, but man, the guy can, you know, my freshman year it was always great. It was always great watching them play. So in the fall and then in the spring, I just happened to be talking to again another friend in the dorm, girl that I had met, Mandy, and she's like, "Oh yeah," she's like, I went to high school." We got on the subject of talking about people, and I was like, "Oh man," I'm like, "He just seems like the way he plays on the field, but he just seems like a really like engaged, like just a really good guy." And just the thoughts of a, of a probably eyes wide open. I wouldn't say deer in headlights, but just kind of an eyes wide open freshman. And and yeah, I went to Leland High in San Jose. He's from Northern California. Pardon me. I was like trying to look through it. But yeah, so Mandy had known him. And one day I remember I'm headed out to class and she was walking back and you just happened to bump into her and they were talking and she introduced me to him. And that's the first time I met Pat Tillman. And and it wasn't even just about football. We were just chatting. And so I mean, I obviously did mention football, but yeah, so he's being a sports nut. But yeah, I mean, and that was the first time I talked to him. It was early in the spring semester. Um of my freshman year. And it was funny because after that, and again, like I had seen different guys from, football, basketball, baseball at the time, and even, girls that I knew that played on the volleyball team, softball team, ran track. Uh, it's just running into different people. I mean, even being around the dorms. I mean, not every single athlete was in the same dorm. And, it was just weird. But so we talked that day, and then literally, and I mean, he went to the WP Carey Business School, so he's in the business building a lot. And I had a few classes over there, but it's just random. I remember just bumping into him and just talking to him, chatting, stuff like that, and always just very engaging. And I've told the story a million times. And a lot of my friends definitely, like I said, they know it. But I've told the story a million times. And so started bumping into Pat Tillman, and we would just talk about things. And like I said, he had known Mandy, but every time he saw me, always engaging. And so the semester wraps up, and he's like, "Hey, so what are you going to do? You're going to try and walk on in the fall?" And I said, and because and I said, I was thinking about it, but I don't, I'm like, huh, I don't know. And so he's like, yeah, man, you got to give it a shot. And so just talking to him and, him knowing background anyway, fast forwarding, but, we bumped into each other. We talk a lot, and it was, always very cool, very cordial. So I remember it was a parents weekend the next fall. And my parents, we go to the game and stuff like that. And then afterwards, we go to one of the pizza places. And it was just funny because, some player, whatever players are doing, whatever after a game, you figure, you know, who's going where, this and that. It's Saturday night, usually a little bit late, but parents' weekend game started a little earlier. So me and my mom and dad were in line, and we're gonna go up and order. And so all of a sudden, I hear this voice behind me, like, oh, he's like, hey, Mike, what's going on? And I was like, because some of my friends were gonna meet us over there. I'm like, why would they say? And I turn around and Pat Tillman is behind us. And I literally was just like, oh, I'm like, hey, I'm like, well, we just watched this guy make quite a few great tackles, mom, dad. And so I introduced him to my mom and dad. And we were sitting there and then we ordered and we're talking. And I mean, he was literally talking to my mom and dad for like 10, 15 minutes. And it's not even about being a college athlete or a celebrity, this and that. It's like he was just a person. And I heard it from so many people afterwards, but he was just a person that, obviously if he saw you, knew he was going to sit there and talk to you. And obviously he was talking to my dad for a little bit, and like I said, mom and dad, but I was talking to my dad for a little bit, and we're chatting. And that's when he told, it's funny because that's one of the first times I heard, my dad was just asking him about, practice, something about practices, and then, getting, graduating and, being redshirted. And he's like, no, he's like, when they first recruited me, they said they were going to redshirt me. And it wasn't about, I need to start or I need to play, but I have plans with my life. And yes, playing football, I enjoy doing it. But basically along the lines, he was telling my dad he told Bruce Snyder, and it's a well-known story, that no, I'm going to graduate in 4 years. So, I mean, you can choose to redshirt me or do whatever you want, but I'm graduating in 4 years and I got things to do with my life. And that was just Pat Tillman's attitude about attacking, how he attacked everything. And like you said, I mean, 10, we were in line for a few minutes, but 10, 15, 10, 15-minute conversation, 20-minute conversation. There were some other players that a few had walked over, and, Pat's like, oh, meet Mike's parents. It was awesome. It was cool to be around, and it was, to me, again, it was never one of those things that not ever really being starstruck, pardon me. Yeah. Say that 10 times fast. Right. But to be that engaging. And then, like I said, even when anytime I saw him on campus, it was always, hey, how's it going? How's class? Stuff like that. And I'm asking him, I'm like, especially after the Rose Bowl season, asking him, hey, gonna go train for the the draft. Obviously, should be going to the combine. I go, but training for the NFL draft. And he's like, yeah, and yeah, gonna go at that too. And the Cardinals happened to draft him after they had already drafted, the year before, Jake Plummer. And so obviously different sides of the ball, but they got to reunite. But yeah, I mean, that was my contact, and just even being at ASU with Pat Tillman. And like I said, I mean, that, little conversation, again, it wasn't like, oh, the biggest deal in the world, or, oh, like Pat Tillman talked to us. I mean, I talked to, I never really got, a few times, being starstruck, everybody's been there, but yeah, I mean, he was just like that guy, that dude that people, you would talk to, but you always had an energy around him. And to me, that was the thing. There was always an energy around Pat. And it's not just obviously everything that's happened, if you know his story, and again, getting more and more to it, but he just had, again, that positivity, that energy around him, that a person like could easily gravitate to being around. I mean, being friends with him, obviously, I mean, he married his high school sweetheart. I think they even knew each other since middle school, Marie. But he just had that, you always hear the cliches, oh, that zest for life. But I mean, he did, and he lived it. And so then he gets drafted by the Cardinals. He's playing for the Cardinals for a few years, and is about to sign, I think would have been his second contract. And then 9/11 happens. And if you haven't seen the interview again that he gave, you can find it. I just, talking about what happened and talking about how, his grandfather had served, and he's had family that served, and he hasn't really done a damn thing with his life. And to a lot of people, the headlines, the obviously the headlines was, oh, NFL star walks away for millions to join the army, and him and his brother went into the army. He didn't sign the contract, and let the coaches and the front office of the Cardinals know. And anybody that knew Pat, though, I mean, and again, like I said, I know him on that level, but when you hear, when it first happened, people talk about it, like, that's Pat Tillman. Like, it wasn't, yes, he said he hasn't done, a damn thing, basically of importance in his life like that. And, 9/11 hit home for him, and people that had, close friends and family. And I mean, even his brother, they both went in to the army together after 9/11 happened. And those that said that they knew him said that was just Pat. Like, it wasn't knee jerk. Like, he was going to look at the situation, obviously what he wanted to do, what he needed to do to accomplish it, and how to get there. Everything like that. So it wasn't, people that knew him wasn't a shock. Yes, to the outside world that didn't, like, oh, how could you throw away millions, and you're going to go into the army. And I remember Leon Freeman, when I was covering the junior colleges. Leon Freeman, a very, very good defensive end that played at Mesa Community College and went on to play at Baylor. I did an interview with him because out of high school, Leon went into the military, and saying that how the military changed, his life. Not that he was a bad kid or getting in trouble, but just, needing that focus. And, Leon was in Florida, and he was not bouncing around, but I'm saying played football, but, didn't really do the best in the classroom, but wasn't having that focus. So yeah, he said, he went into the army, and then, he was actually deployed. He was over in Iraq and Iraq and Afghanistan, if I recall Leon saying that. But yeah, I mean, Leon Freeman, and I said to him, when you hear the name Pat Tillman, he goes, I go, what comes to mind when I interviewed him? And I'll never forget this. And he said, he goes, he goes, a hero. He goes, dedication. He goes, because you're playing in the NFL, which, so, a lot of athletes and people striving to get to, and to have that chance, yes, to play at that level, but to make that money. And he goes, a true hero. And after we were done with the interview, I was talking to him about a little more, saying just how, obviously, like I said here, how I had met Pat Tillman, and man, he was just like, wow. But yeah, I mean, people that knew Pat said that was him. So he goes, into the army, and after 9/11 happens, and him and his brother, and then, he's there. He actually came back when he was stateside again. He actually went and spoke to the Cardinals, when they were up in Seattle. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I think Dave McGinnis was the head coach at the time, and he said, yeah, they were so excited to see him, and just him talking to the team. But yeah, he was back stateside, and then him and his brother had gotten deployed again, and again they were over there, and unfortunately, it finally came to fruition. I mean, unfortunately, he was killed in Iraq, and the unfortunate thing is that it was friendly fire that ended the life of Pat Tillman. And but in listening to his, when they had his memorial service, which was I'm not going to say hosted, but I mean, Jim Rome was the speaker, and he had interviewed Pat. He had known Pat for years as well, and interviewed Pat quite a few times. And the family had asked him to be the orator. That's the word I was looking for the service. And at first he was like, I was like, me, why me? And he did it in a lot of his former teammates, obviously from the Cardinals, from the Sun Devils. Jake Plummer, again, who was a very close friend of Pat's, got up and spoke. And I mean, it just the testaments you heard. And I mean, again, you saw Marie, his wife, at the service, and just like the family and I mean, all like the stories that people were sharing, but it was just, I mean, and he was a straight shooter too. I mean, he would tell you like it is. And like I said, the times I was around him, every now and then I might say something, or if, it's like, oh, waffling on something, or maybe making an excuse, he would just kind of have that look like, come on now, you're, almost like you're better than that, better. And like I said, in the conversations we had, I was grateful for those. And, when you saw the service, like I said, but to give up something he was doing. And again, like I said, he told Bruce Snyder in recruiting that he was not going to, he was not going to redshirt. Like, you can redshirt me, but I'm done in 4 years. So you tell me what you want to do with me, because I'm going to graduate in 4 years. And Pat Tillman did that. And Pat Tillman, he just personified that. And like I said, when one of the most chilling things I remember, man, was it back in college? Yeah, it was back in college. And one of my friends had lost one of my friends at the time had lost an uncle. I think it was her uncle. And it was, we were at the service, and I remember, and I'm sure it had been said before, but it was like, I say, 19, back then it was 19, whatever, 50 something to, to 19, 99. And I heard it's like, and they say the two in the dash, and it's like, how did you live that dash? I remember the priest had said that, and that was the first time, like I said, that was the first time I had heard it. And how do you live that dash? How did you live your life? And, people say, oh, live life to the fullest, tomorrow's not guaranteed, which is true. And very true. I mean, things come cliche, like I always say, because they're true. And we were robbed of Pat Tillman way too early, to say the least. And he he was born November 6th. And it was funny because I think, and I don't remember if they did, they may have said it, because my dad's birthday was on November 7th and Pat's was November 6th. And it's born 1976, and he passed away April 22nd of 2004 at 27 years young. But that dash that people talk about, those 27 years, there was not a moment from just listening to people speak at the service, and even people speak at them afterwards, and former coaches that I've been lucky enough to talk to, and former teammates that I've been lucky enough to to be around and, like I said, talk to as well. There was never a moment if he was around people that he wasn't, again, living life to the fullest. And for Pat Tillman, it's how you lived your dash is how people will remember you. And again, I remember I saw a thing. It says, to be, basically, I'm paraphrasing, but to be loved by the ones close to you is truly to never die. And again, his memory goes on. And they started the Pat Tillman Foundation. They started the Pat Tillman Foundation. Yeah, he enlisted in the Army. Everything happened in September of, obviously, 9/11, September 2001. And, and by the end of the year and then into 2002, obviously, things started to ramp up military-wise, and he joined the Army in May of 2002. Yeah, and he served in Iraq and Afghanistan. And but how you live that dash, and like I said, just getting to talk to more and more people that were around Pat Tillman, that knew Pat Tillman, and coaches again that is coaching. Coach Dan Cazzetto, he was offensive line coach actually under Bruce Snyder when Pat Tillman was at ASU. And I remember Coach Cazzetto when he was over at coaching at Phoenix College when Maricopa Colleges still had football. But Coach Cazzetto, I've talked to him many times, came on the show, actually stayed for more than one segment. And it was right before Pat's run quite a few years back. And he was, or a few years back, and he was just saying that, even in practice, things would be spirited, but that's how he wanted. Nobody, taking it easy and wanting to get better and wanting to take those steps, and just sharing, some of his stories, because obviously offensive line, dealing with linebackers, Pat Tillman playing linebacker at ASU. And yeah, he just embodied, what a football player should be. And Coach Cazzetto said, you said that about him when he was there. You said that about him, not because of, what happened, but that's how he took on everyday life. And he goes, how he took on life is just poured over to the football field, is when Coach Cazzetto and I were talking. And, which leads me to the importance and the awesomeness of Pat's run. And like I said, it started 2005 was the first year. And like I said, it's a 4.2 mile race. And the first year had about 3,000 runners. And now, man, it has grown exponentially. I think I had it. In my notes, and pardon me, but I want to say it's around like 9,000, 10,000 this year. And Well, they're saying over 35,000 participants. And yeah, again, you come into Sun Devil Stadium and you finish on the 42-yard line, ends the 4.2-mile run. And, with the yeah, 35,000 participants. And like I said, from the first year of 3,000, a lot of people at, ASU has done a good job. I know Doug Tamro has done a phenomenal job with it, obviously. And he was starting his career at ASU when Pat Tillman was at ASU. So, look, it's a great thing to get involved in. Obviously, the Tillman Foundation, again, awarding scholarships to young men and women that are going to school but like military base. So if they're going in to the military, you get involved with the Tillman Foundation. But just the important of Pat's run and the phenomenal thing about it, and I credit Todd Graham and the administration then for this, because inside Sun Devil Stadium and on Saturday, yes, I will be taking another picture of it and sharing. So follow me on Twitter at Diablo00. But as the players come out, they all walk past the it's the Tillman Tunnel, but there's a statue of Pat Tillman. Say talked about putting just like a pitchfork up. And I know Todd Graham had suggested, and maybe he wasn't the only one, but was in the room and suggesting they should put up a they put up the Pat Tillman statue. So again, on a day like this, where, even if you, have younger kids with you, or they're just waiting for you to finish and watch, but just to tell the story of Pat Tillman and share that from, like I said, from generation to generation, from those that were at, because last year they had the 25th anniversary of the 97 Rose Bowl team. And a lot of those guys were back. And obviously, Pat was with them there, because they all obviously hold him very dear. And like I said, not just because of what, yes, the unfortunate and tragic way his life ended, but doing it his way and what he wanted to do, obviously not wanting his life to end like that, but you can share the story of, ultimate sacrifice, giving, being that support for people, being that team, that ultimate, when you say team player, obviously not diminishing anything he did, but yeah. So it's great to have that statue there. It's great to pass that on. And like I said, ASU just does such a phenomenal job with it. And like I said, I know Doug Tamro has done, it's been 15 years, like I said, 15 years, and started out as a, so yeah, Doug Tamro, they gave, like I said, President Michael Crow, Doug Tamro's talked about, they gave the green light and didn't worry about, anything outside of just doing it right. And, and it's grown to people do, in the pandemic, people were doing, Pat's runs, their own, and posting it, and, the video, the whole, 4.2 miles. And, but yeah, to be back at, Sun Devil, to be back at Sun Devil Stadium, it taking place. And like you said, again, hats off to again, Doug Tamro, who's grown this and helped grow it, and tons of sponsors, and obviously former players, and the Tillman family being very supportive of it too. So again, if you don't know about Pat Tillman, again, you can go into Sun Devil Stadium and you will see the statue. But just if you get a chance, again, talk to former players, former coaches that were around him, and just people that knew him as just a truly genuine and great friend. And that's what a lot of people said about him. So, and not just said, but he lived it. They're not, it's easy to say something, when somebody's gone, but like he lived it. If you were around him, like I said, you saw it. And man, it's just, again, such a phenomenal event. I will be out there again early. I'm not partaking in it this year. We did partake in the first 3, and then took a year off, and then did the next 3, and then actually was out of town for the next 2. It's just crazy how certain things. I remember I was out of town for the next. And then out of town for the next 3, and then rotated years after that. And then in the pandemic, me and my sister went out and did a little 4.2 mile. We didn't do a run because I was in no way able to do a run, but able to do it. And so again, if you're not out there this year, again, just you'll see everything. Just look up Pat's run throughout the year. And usually around the new year, they'll start registration, and it goes pretty quick. So it'll be awesome to see the people out there tomorrow. It will be phenomenal, hopefully, to run into. Again, Jake Plummer was out at spring practice yesterday and actually talked to the team. He was watching practice and even talked to the team. Afterwards, Coach Dillingham had him address the team, which was cool. And again, I got to talk to Jake, obviously, during the Super Bowl. You saw that here on Pac-12 Preview. So, it's again, having alumni. Actually, Todd Heap was out there yesterday too. Sean McDonald was out there yesterday as well. So, again, just getting alumni back out there. Again, the energy, everything. But to have the spring game, and Coach Dillingham said, oh, well, did you, think about obviously doing the spring game? He was asked the other day. But I'll get to this on the side. I'm going to take a quick break real quick. Again, digest the Pat Tillman quick break and come back on the other side, wrap up with that. And then, the spring game this week, and talk about what some baseball, softball action that we have going on. More coming up here on Pac-12 Preview. All right, back here on Pac-12 Preview, I am Michael Caratinito at Diablo00 on Twitter is where you can find me. Again, hit me up. Any questions, whatever, any debate thoughts, just let me know. It's cool like that. So we can you can go back and forth with me. You tell me I'm crazy. By the way, congrats to Utah gymnastics, because last night they did advance to the NCAA final after posting the highest postseason score in program history. The Lady Utes, crushing it there in gymnastics, and they have been for a little bit. So, and Maile O'Keefe, Utah's Maile O'Keefe and UCLA's Jordan Chillis collected 2 NCAA titles apiece at nationals. So again, hats off to and O'Keefe had a perfect 10 on beam, and that highlighted the all around. So yeah, Utah again headed to the final, again posting their highest score in program history. But yeah, I want to wrap up. So Coach Dillingham was asked yesterday, or the other day after practice, if he thought that, or if he, they wanted to schedule the preseason game with Pat's run, in order to get more, maybe see if more people would stay for the spring game. And he said no. He goes, that wasn't a part of it. He goes, I know I've talked about activating the Valley and getting people out, but he goes, no. He goes, just what better way to culminate on that day, on that Saturday, and just have spring game, honor Pat. And then obviously the sport he played at ASU. So no, I think it's awesome again. And Coach Dillingham, and, there's some, I guess the question had to be asked fair enough, and it's not that it was bad or anything, but, and it's easy to connect that dot and see, well, you got a lot of people running, they'll see they finish up and then the game starts, at noon, and it's because people are done by 10 o'clock, and by the time they clearing the field out, stuff like that. But yeah, people can stick around for the game, which will just be absolutely awesome. So no, I just think to do it all together, have a great event, and again, just a day, every day, Pat Tillman should be honored, but a day just to engulf it all and have Pat's run and have the spring game, just to me, absolutely awesome. So, yeah, that's what he said about that. But yeah, baseball wise this weekend, there it is. I was like, there's no basketball this weekend. So Cal and Utah having a weekend series. Cal's at Utah. Stanford is at Oregon this weekend in baseball. And UCLA, again, since odd number of teams in the Pac-12, UCLA's taking on UC Davis this weekend. ASU travels up to the Pacific Northwest, and they will be taking on the Huskies. 24-9 overall for ASU, 19-10 for Washington. And well, this is a big series too for Arizona, because they travel up to the Pacific Northwest as well, as they take on the Cougars of Washington State. And Arizona's 17-13 right now, and Washington State 19-12. And kind of did the matchups backwards, but nonetheless, when we look at the standings in baseball, Stanford and ASU both up top in the Pac-12, their conference records, and these are everybody's conference records. Stanford and ASU both 10-2. The Trojans are 9-3. UCLA is 8-5-1. Oregon is 7-5. Washington 6-6 overall. Oregon State is at 7-8. Washington State at 5-9. Arizona at 5-10. In conference play, and then Utah 3-11-1, and then Cal is at 3-12. So, like I said, that Arizona Washington State series, because if say either one sweeps, say Arizona sweeps, they're now 8-10 and in conference play, and they would be 20-13 overall. If Washington were to sweep, and again, we can go, who wins two, if somebody win, they win two, if they win one, but I'm just saying, false positive both. If Washington State sweeps, that would make them 8-9, and then 22-12 overall. So, I mean, again, the lower end of the Pac-12 standings, as I've told you, but that is absolutely huge. So for I mean, Stanford too. I mean, you look at Oregon. Oregon's at 7-5 in conference play. If they were to somehow, and again, I don't see that happening. Not saying they can't win a game or even win two, but I don't see Stanford getting swept by Oregon. But say that Oregon was to sweep Stanford, they would be 10-5, as would Stanford after that. So again, a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda, ifs, but just great matchups in the Pac-12 this weekend. And like I said, Stanford and Arizona State battling USC right there, and they got Oregon State, who, again, they're starting to get hot, and they're at home too. Is Oregon State, so SC traveling up there. So if Oregon State gets 2 or 3, they would be 9-9 in the Pac, and that would mean USC would be 10-5. So it's, like I said, a lot of the coulda, shoulda, woulda, ifs mean nothing, but the fact I'm talking about them is just how insane that this conference, is overall in the battle for the regular season conference title. A chance to host obviously regionals, but more so importantly, getting onto that and hosting a super regional. So, but overall records: Stanford 22-8. Arizona State 24-9, coming off a big comeback victory win over Grand Canyon. They put up 6 or 7 in the 8th inning. In the 7th or 8th inning, yeah, they put up a huge amount of runs late and end up beating Grand Canyon on the road. Well, going across the valley there, but still on the road, 13-10. But they're 24-9 overall. USC 21-10-1. UCLA 19-9-1, and then Oregon's at 22-9. Washington at 19-10. Oregon State overall 21-11, and they're coming off a 15-1 beating of Gonzaga. Then Washington State 19-12 overall. Arizona 17-13. Like I said, Utah and Cal, the two teams under 500. Utah's 12-19-1, and Cal is, one game under 500 overall at 14-15. So they're hovering around. They're hovering around 500 overall, but have a lot of work to do in Pac-12 play. So that's where Pac-12 baseball is at. And then for softball, as we look at the schedule for this weekend, Stanford taking on Utah. Cal, again, they'll have out-of-conference matchup against UNLV. ASU, they host the Ducks this weekend. So huge matchup there as Oregon comes to town. And then UCLA, I talked about this on Monday. The Bruins are headed down to Tucson to take on the Wildcats. So, yes, if you're up in the Valley, you should definitely check out ASU Oregon, hands down. But if you're down in Tucson at any time this weekend, and I forgot to mention this Monday, and if you can get a ticket, see if you can get a ticket, because if you're in that area, I would definitely suggest hitting the Arizona UCLA game, any of the games, all three if possible. But I mean, the battles these two teams, like I said Monday, traditionally have had throughout the years, absolutely phenomenal. If you did your homework and you went back and looked at the history of the Women's College World Series, and yes, UCLA has a ton of titles. Arizona has a ton of titles. And you can see when they've battled each other in the championship game. So, yes, everybody wants to talk about best conferences. We go through history. Pac-12 and softball, they own every other conference. So, and it's not even close. You can talk till you're purple in the face. It's not even close. And then Washington is taking on Oregon State this weekend as well in softball. So that is, again, like for standings wise and where, and then when we look at the standings too, you look at UCLA again up top in the standings in the overall in the conference, but conference record, UCLA is 12-3. They're up top. The Huskies are 10-5, and right behind them, Stanford and Utah, both 8-4. Cal is 6-8-1. Oregon is 5-7, as is Arizona State. And that's why I said Monday, this is a huge, huge series, because you at least want to take, if you can take 2 out of 3, either school is going to be 7-8. If somehow ASU were to sweep Oregon at home, which they could do, I mean, Oregon could turn around and sweep them. I'm just saying, if you're the home team, though, if ASU sweeps them, they would go to 8-7 overall. They'd be 8-7 in conference play, 24-13 overall. So, I mean, yeah, both of those teams are 5-7, and you're right there. Chances of chasing down UCLA for a Pac-12 regular season title, I mean, it would have to start now for either Arizona State or Oregon. But you could leapfrog Cal. Utah, you'd have to catch Washington at 10-5, has that chance, and then Stanford and Utah, at 8-4, giving themselves that chance as well. So, yeah, that's again, but just in UCLA overall, 36-4 overall. Washington 29-8, Stanford 31-6, Utah 26-8, Cal 25-12-1, Oregon 25-11, ASU, like I said, 21-13, Arizona at 24-50. And again, I know I said, and they're okay. So Arizona's 3-9 in conference play, and Oregon State's 2-12-1. But Arizona, seeing them play when they're here up here in Tempe, it's like it's just. The conference record to me doesn't fit. Yes, they are playing in a very tough conference and they are challenged, but I just, again, them being 3-9, I would picture them more as, being around 6-6, 5-7-ish, where, ASU and Oregon are at lowest. But look, that's why you play the games. Nothing's done on paper, which I am a huge, huge supporter and fan of. Nothing being done on paper. So, yeah, that is the weekend in baseball and softball in the Pac-12. Again, great games. If you're in Tempe on Saturday, again, if you're not in Pass Run, a little too late, but you can always get in next year. Again, keep up with it. Again, when you search Pass Run, it has all the information. You can get emails, reminders, everything to register for the run. Go out there and support the cause, and like I said, be supportive of the Tillman Foundation. Talk to your kids about Pat Tillman and many others like him. It's not just, like I said, talking about this today in honor of Pat's run, what was set up at him being at ASU. When it was the Pac-10, but nonetheless, it's important, and you can share stories of others, and the kids can see it. They get pictured by, like I said, the Tillman statue, and again, it's just absolutely awesome. Like, I can't overstate enough, like, having done it, having been a part of it, but just to seeing what it's grown to and what people have done, and across the country, and people having Tillman events all across the country. So again, it has grown to that, and let his memory live on, let his story live on, and you honor him, the family, everything, by being a part of it. But again, sharing, what he meant and what he did, and having younger kids understand and taking pictures by, like I said, not even just, but like the Tillman statue, and just listening to, like I said, either former coaches, teammates, friends, family, just talk about him. That is the phenomenal part. That is the absolute phenomenal part of the whole weekend. And like I said, I mean, to get Pat Tillman to be a part of the Tillman run. But the Tillman Foundation gives you volunteers. I mean, everything throughout the year. So again, a lot of, like I said, great events going on this weekend. The spring game is going to be culminated, or Pat's run. Yeah, the spring game culminates. The Pat's run. Make it a day out in Tempe. Why not? And then make it a day out in Tempe, and you could go to the spring game, and then you go to the spring game, and that wraps up. And then at 5 p.m., you could head over to Club Farrington Stadium, and check out the ASU softball team take on Oregon at 5 p.m. I mean, Saturday's a beautiful day. So again, it starts with that. And again, it's not just a one-day thing. It's a 365 thing. Like I've said before on shows, to have, like I said, Pat Tillman, and to be a part of it, it's just absolutely awesome. And you can learn a lot. And again, I learn new things every year, listen to different people talk. When I've heard different people say things, talk about, share stories, people that have been lucky enough to, like I said, interview former teammates of Pat's. And it's awesome. But it's a phenomenal event. ASU does a phenomenal job. And again, shout out to, Doug Tamaro and a huge group. But I know in the beginning, Doug Tamaro obviously pushing huge for it, and Pat's run has just been, again, just a phenomenal event. So that's going to wrap it up. Again, have a great weekend. Again, if you're in Tempe, in the area, again, check out the spring game. Check out, again, you can check out Pat's run. I mean, seeing the amount of people that do it, like I said, from 3,000 to over 30,000, and starting at 3,000, going to over 30,000, done a phenomenal job. So I am out of here until Monday. I'll see you same bat time, same bat channel on Monday. I'll wrap up the spring game, talk, baseball, softball, see if we can get some guests on. Maybe we'll have guests on. We'll see where it goes. You know what? Because we're going towards that line, but we'll see where it takes us. So going to get out of here. Everybody have a very, very phenomenal weekend. Like I said, enjoy whatever you're enjoying. Obviously, I know NBA playoffs start as well, so people can enjoy that. I know the play-in last of the play-in games are tonight. You have that. By the way, shout out to Lou Dort, Oklahoma City Sun Devil, forks up. Obviously James Harden in the playoffs. My Homer side, got to shout out my guys there. But yeah, so you got NBA playoffs, and Stanley Cup playoffs start on Monday. So those are the best playoffs in all sports. I mean, if you watch the Frozen Four, I know college hockey, if you watch the Frozen Four, the way that ended, congratulations to Quinnipiac, first ever title in any sport. They beat Minnesota in overtime. And I mean, just intense. But the Stanley Cup playoffs, phenomenal. They'll start Monday, but yeah, we'll get to that. So anyway, everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy what you can enjoy. Again, if you're out in Tempe, check out Pat's run on Saturday. If not, go walk, go jog 4.2 miles in honor of Pat Tillman. And again, share the story, learn the story. Keep it going, because again, great person who did great things, and it is just awesome that we can honor him. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday. And yes, as always, forks up.